Over the past few days, I've been playing Mouse P.I. Now, this is a detective, action-adventure, first-person shooter game developed by Fumi Games and published by PlaySide Studios. Now, Fumi, I believe, is a Polish video game developer. PlaySide Studios is an Australian video game publisher. Nonetheless, this game has been released on everything, and the one thing that sets it apart, it's not the fact that it's a first-person shooter game, it's not the fact that it's a detective noir game, but more importantly, is that gorgeous art style, and the presentation here is properly brilliant. And this is a game, by the way, you'll either hate it or love it based on its art style, but if you're like me, if you grew up watching some of these cartoons that were being replayed from this old Disney cartoons where everything was hand-sketched and had a particular style of animation, the characters, the events, the actions, the figures, everything that takes place in this video game has been styled and animated in that format. Everything is in black and white, but in this very cartoon shaded style, not just shell shading, but even the interior deco, it has this very art deco style of art that sort of mimics the 1930s, a Prohibition era style Manhattan, but in this case obviously known as Mouseburg, but properly brilliant. Something else that really stands out with this game is that while it is only voiced in English, the voice acting is properly brilliant. It does have the written text, you can have it in, I believe, a myriad other languages, so mine is in French, but the voice acting is in English. The voice acting by Troy Baker, who plays the lead detective Jack Pepper, the one character you're getting to play as, properly brilliant. Now, you do encounter other characters. In this, there's the mayor, they're like stage managers, people like that. There's a journalist by the name of Wonder. I believe she is voiced, I forget the lady's name, the actress's name, but pretty popular actor back in the day, especially if you used to watch things like the OC, 90210, those style of shows. I think she featured in, she starred in quite a bit of those. I just noticed her name come up in the credits. I'll put up her picture and name if I'm able to find it. The audio design here is actually properly brilliant. The music is really good. And the fact that it sets you in that proper noir style. And I love the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously, that when characters do die, when they do get shot, they're also animated in that way that was safe for kids from back in the day. So properly brilliant. Now, moving on to the gameplay. This is a first-person shooter in the same sense that Doom, the Dark Ages of Doom Eternal or Doom 2016 is a first-person shooter. There are no cover mechanics. It is just run and gun, back and forth, and it's very fast-paced. Now, you do get a weapon roll. You are able to select between having to melee the enemies or to use a shotgun or a Tommy gun, and I believe a myriad of other weapons that you get to collect along the way. The weapons roll is actually quite wide, but I absolutely love it. And the gun effect is very cheesy, I know, pardon the pun, but it does lend itself to that style of animation and just the art direction of this wonderful video game. The one thing that I will say, the gun sounds, just because they are a little bit cheesy, it can feel like the guns don't necessarily have enough of an effect. And by the way, there is no difference between using a Tommy gun and just getting involved in fisticuffs as Jack Pepper. And I love the fact that he constantly has this witty comments that has going on, it was one of those things that you never wanted to do back in the day as a detective. A respectable detective will never do that, but a detective has got to eat. But either way, Troy Baker's voice work here is properly brilliant. And I love the fact that he's constantly commenting whenever you are playing. There are platforming elements, there are puzzle elements where you get to move and shift things around. And in terms of gunplay and combat, it's more like Doom in that sense. Obviously, it's not going to be as frenetic as anything as Ed Games or Activision or maybe Battlefield Studios have produced, but it's just very different in that there's no aiming down sights. There's just sort of shooting and sort of moving from side to side. You can use objects in the environment like dynamite or barrels, explosive barrels, and chuck them at enemies to blow apart not just enemies but even take down walls. And I love the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously. It tells you this wall looks like it's very unstable, something like that. So there are always clues in the environment. And something that I did notice, and this is more towards the art direction, we have that yellow paint theory with video games, the fact that gamers have been so used to being led by yellow paint. In Mouse P.I, because obviously everything is black and white, the player is guided not by yellow paint and not by strips of white paint, but rather things that just glow slightly differently, where the shine of the paint is slightly differently. Something may be shaded a little bit darker, you're not supposed to go there, but something that's shaded brightly, that's definitely subconsciously you're being led that way. So that's something I really got to appreciate. Now, you do have a detective board, much like Alan Wake 2, by the way, where you don't get into this mind palace, but you collect clues, which you then put on your detective board as Jack Pepper, and solving these clues enables you to unlock the next mission. And it's very much like Alan Wake in that it's divided into this hub areas. This is one central hub area where Jack Pepper's office is. But when you are traveling in between, Alan Wake has a cutscene. Here in essence, you don't have a cutscene, but like a tiny mini game where you have to guide this little toy car on a map to where you're supposed to go. And it has been done properly, brilliantly, where you can see these buildings that are either locked down or you don't necessarily have access to them just yet. And it's very tongue-in-cheek and very on-the-nose dialogue. It's like, yeah, you can have access to this place, just not yet. You need to beat a couple of enemies in the area first. But even on the map, rather than having a loading screen, and even though you do have a short loading screen after, the fact that you can move the car along into the next location and you load into that location, very linear, unfortunately, some of this area, so you don't get much exploration. There are secrets here and there, in places where like a hidden stairway or a hidden area that you could go into and collect this baseball cards. There's a baseball card mini game that I don't particularly understand or like. But just the fact that there is so much to explore and so much to appreciate. Now, I will say in the gameplay, some of it has gotten a little bit repetitive, and it's just this classic trope like with, I forgot the horror game is, the Callisto Protocol, where you fall through a particular area like multiple times, and the only reason you're falling through that particular area, the first time it's good because it advances the story or teaches you a new gameplay mechanic, which is what great video game directors do, but when it happens 2 or 3 times, you just know it's padding out the length of the video game, but also just getting you involved in the necessary combat. And by the way, I'm surprised how combat heavy this is. So essentially you do have moments where you get to explore, but you also have moments where you're just constantly involved in combat back and forth, but it's properly brilliant in that regard. Now, I believe the game has sold just approximately over 730,000 copies. That was as of mid-May. We are towards the end of May. I hope that they sell a lot more than that. This was not a full price title. It was properly brilliant, and I wish that team, Fumi Games in particular, all the success. Now, I have been playing this on Steam Deck, and there's one thing that I've noticed. I will purchase a copy on the Xbox Series X console once I'm done with my travels, and just to see if I'm able to just spot the differences. But even though I'm playing this natively with native resolution on the Steam Deck OLED, it runs perfectly smoothly. By the way, I cap everything to 30, everything else set to high, not ultra. You don't have many options, but it does seem like the image is somewhat a little bit too soft. I don't know if that's due to the art direction, or maybe limitations of the Steam Deck and the fact that maybe I think I just needed ultra graphic settings, or at least higher quality textures. But perhaps it's got something to do with the art direction. You can check that out, and if you've seen anyone who's done a playthrough on YouTube, even though there is YouTube compression, just see if you're able to test it out, or maybe just even see the screen grabs of the videos from the official PlayStation Store or Xbox Store channels, and just see if you're able to see and spot the difference. But it does appear to be rather soft on the Steam Deck. Either way, this is a properly brilliant game. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm absolutely enjoying it. And it's one of those games where I'm having something play in the background just for background noise, but I've got the deck and I'm playing it and I'm like, wow, this makes it Steam Deck OLED extra worth it. Yes, I know there's a price increase. Unfortunately, I'm fortunate enough to have been able to purchase one way before, but it is a way of the world, isn't it? Either way, just some quick thoughts on Mouse P.I. Definitely worth looking into. Definitely worth getting. My name is Kelly, and this is In Perspective. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.